My name's Lauren, and I'm 34. Picture me in my cramped Ohio kitchen coffee mug in hand, scrolling through emails on a quiet morning. My daughter Harper's wedding is weeks away, a Paris dream I've poured my savings into. Then ping. Her email lands. Subject wedding update. I open it, heart racing, only to read, don't come. Watch the live stream. Google Earth window LOL. My chest tightens. How could she? My own kid shutting me out. Have you ever felt tossed aside by someone you'd die for? Hit like if you know that ache, subscribe to hear what I did next, and tell me where you watching from. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the email, my coffee now cold. Harper's words burned into me. Don't come. Google Earth window LOL. I read it again, hoping I'd missed something, some hint it was a mistake. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. Her cheery recorded voice felt like a mockery. I texted, "Is this real?" No reply. The silence was louder than any answer she could have given. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything I thought I knew about us. I'm Lauren, 34, a nurse who spent years piecing together a life for Harper and me. Her dad, Ethan, walked out when she was 3, leaving me to juggle night shifts and school plays. I didn't mind. Harper was my world. When she got into art school in Paris, I cried harder than she did, so proud I could burst. I wired $5,000 for her wedding venue last month, a garden tucked in some romantic corner of Paris. She'd called me that day, voice bubbling over. "Mom, you're the best. I can't wait for you to walk me down the aisle." I'd replayed those words every night since dreaming of her in white, my arm linked with hers. Now, this email. I stood pacing my tiny apartment, the floor creaking under my socks. My eyes landed on a photo frame on the bookshelf, one I hadn't touched in months. Harper and me at her high school graduation. Her in a cap and gown, me beaming like I'd won the lottery. I picked it up. Dust smudging my fingers. On the back in her loopy teenage handwriting, "Mom, you're my hero." I clutched it, my throat tightening. How did we get from that to this? The doorbell buzzed, snapping me out of it. Clara, my best friend from the hospital, stood there with a bottle of wine and a worried frown. She's the kind of person who says what everyone else is too polite to, and I love her for it. I let her in, and before I could speak, she saw my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting the bottle down. I handed her my phone, the email still open. She read it, her eyes widening. "What the hell, after all you've done?" She sank onto the couch, shaking her head. "Lauren, you paid for half that wedding. And she pulls this?" I nodded, sinking beside her. "I don't know what I did wrong," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Clara's jaw tightened. "You didn't do anything. This is on her. Or maybe that fiancé of hers. What's his name, Lucas?" She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "I heard from Sadie he's been acting all high and mighty since they got engaged. Sadie, Harper's old friend from school, was in Paris too, chasing her own dreams." Clara's words planted a seed. Could Lucas be behind this? He'd always seemed polite in video calls, but there was something guarded about him, like he was sizing me up. I wanted to call Sadie to dig for answers, but my phone felt like a brick in my hand. What if Harper really meant it? What if I pushed and she cut me off for good? Clara poured us wine, but I just stared at the glass, my mind spinning. My sister Allison's voice crept in uninvited. She'd called yesterday, her usual lecture about how I'd spoiled Harper rotten. "You're too soft, Lauren. She's walking all over you." I'd brushed it off, but now doubt gnawed at me. Had I loved Harper too much? Given her everything until she thought I was nothing? I stood again, restless, and opened my laptop. The wedding fund spreadsheet glared back at me, rows of numbers I'd scrimped for. Venue deposit, $5,000. My savings gone. I thought of the overtime shifts, the vacations I'd skipped, all for her big day. A day I wasn't even welcome at. Anger flickered sharp and unfamiliar. Clara watched me, her voice softer now. "You deserve better than this, Lauren. You gotta talk to her." I nodded, but my heart wasn't in it. Talking felt like begging, and I wasn't sure I could stomach that. Not yet. I pushed the wine glass away and stood, my legs restless. Clara's words about Lucas lingered, but I couldn't shake Allison's voice, either slicing through my doubt. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been too much, always there, always giving. I walked to the window, staring at the streetlights flickering on. The neighborhood was quiet, but inside me, everything churned. I turned back to Clara. "Do you think I smothered her?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Clara snorted, leaning back on the couch. "Smothered Lauren, you gave her wings. If anything, she's the one forgetting who helped her fly." Her words should have comforted me, but they didn't. I grabbed my phone again, scrolling to Harper's contact. Her photo smiled back, a candid from last Christmas, her, in a red scarf, laughing as we built a lopsided snowman. I'd saved for months to fly her home from Paris for that week. She'd hugged me tight at the airport, promising we'd always be close. Now that memory felt like a lie. I opened our text thread, my unanswered, "Is this real?" staring back. I typed, "Why are you doing this?" but my thumb hovered over send. What was the point? She hadn't answered before. Why would she now? Clara stood, grabbing her jacket. "I'm heading out, but you need to sleep on this. Don't let it eat you alive." She hugged me, her grip firm, and left me alone with my thoughts. I sank onto the couch, the silence heavier than before. My eyes drifted to a stack of mail on the counter, a letter from the hospital credit union peeking out. I'd taken a small loan to cover Harper's art school tuition when her scholarship fell short. Paid it off last year, but the weight of it still lingered. Everything I'd done was for her, and now I was just a live stream spectator. I opened my laptop again, but not to the spreadsheet. I pulled up Harper's social media, something I'd avoided since the email. Her latest post was a photo of her and Lucas, arms around each other in front of the Eiffel Tower. The caption read, "Counting down to forever." My stomach twisted. No mention of me, no hint of the woman who'd made this dream possible. I scrolled further, each post a glimpse into her new life, cafe dates, art gallery visits, Lucas's arm always around her. She looked happy, but there was something in her eyes, a tightness I hadn't seen before. Or was I just seeing what I wanted to? The phone buzzed, startling me. A voicemail from Sadie, Harper's childhood friend. I played it, her voice hesitant. "Hey Lauren, I'm in Paris." I didn't want to get in the middle, but Harper's been acting weird. Like distant. I think it's Lucas's family. They're super rich and they've got opinions about everything. Call me if you want to talk. The message ended, and I replayed it. Sadie's words sinking in. Lucas's family. Could they be pulling strings? I thought of the wedding planner's email, how she'd gushed about the venue's prestige. Maybe I didn't fit their vision of a perfect day. I stood pacing again, anger bubbling up. I wanted to call Sadie, demand details, but it was late, and my head was a mess. Instead, I opened my email and started typing to Harper. "Dear Harper," I wrote, my fingers flying. "I don't know what's going on, but this hurts. I've given you everything and you're pushing me away." I stopped reading it back. It was raw, too raw. I deleted it, the cursor blinking on a blank screen. Clara was right. I couldn't let this eat me. But as I closed the laptop, a new thought hit sharp and cold. What if Harper wasn't just pushing me away? What if she was ashamed of me? The idea settled in heavy and unshakable, and I knew I couldn't sit still anymore. I had to find out why. I woke up the next morning with Sadie's voicemail still looping in my head. Lucas's family, their opinions. My stomach churned as I dragged myself to the hospital for my shift. The idea that Harper might be ashamed of me clung like damp clothes, heavy and cold. I'd barely slept, my eyes gritty, my mind stuck on her Eiffel Tower photo, that tight smile. Was she hiding something? I wanted to call Sadie back, but the hospital was already buzzing when I clocked in, patients piling up, no time to think. I'm Lauren, 34, and days like this make me feel every second of it. The ER was chaos, monitors, beeping, voices overlapping. I moved through it on autopilot, checking charts, adjusting IVs, but my focus was shot. I kept seeing Harper's words, "Google Earth window, LOL." Each replay stoked the anger I'd tried to bury. By lunch, I was in the break room staring at a stale sandwich when Marcus, a fellow nurse, slid into the chair across from me. "You look like hell," he said, his voice gentle despite the bluntness. "What's going on?" I hesitated. Marcus was older, a dad with a quiet wisdom I trusted. I told him about Harper's email, the voicemail from Sadie, my gnawing fear that Lucas's family was behind it. My voice cracked as I admitted, "I think she's embarrassed of me." Marcus leaned back, his eyes softening. "My daughter cut me off for 2 years," he said. "Thought I wasn't good enough either. It's not about you, Lauren. It's their noise, not your worth." His words hit, but they didn't soothe. If it wasn't me, why was Harper letting this happen? I checked my phone again. Still nothing from her. I opened her social media, a habit now, and saw a new post, a close-up of her engagement ring against a Paris sunset. My heart sank. She was living her fairy tale while I was stuck here unraveling. I scrolled the comments, strangers gushing, but one stood out. A friend tagged Sadie, saying, "Wish your mom could see this, Harp." My breath caught. Sadie's mom. Why mention her? Was Harper cutting out everyone from home, back on the floor? I was distracted and it showed. I snapped at a new intern for misplacing a chart, my tone sharper than I meant. He flinched and I mumbled an apology, guilt piling on. I wasn't myself and it was spilling everywhere. In the supply closet restocking bandages, I let myself cry quick and silent, the kind of tears you choke back before anyone notices. I thought of a moment when Harper was 10 sobbing because Ethan skipped her birthday. I'd held her, promising I'd never let her feel that alone again. Now she was doing it to me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Ethan, of all people. "Heard about Harper's wedding crap. Let her go, Lauren. She's grown." I stared, my jaw tight. Ethan, who'd barely sent a birthday card in 15 years, had the nerve to weigh in. His words lit a fuse. I typed back, "Stay out of it," and hit send before I could rethink it. But his text stirred something deeper, a fear that maybe he was right. Maybe Harper didn't need me anymore. The thought was a knife twisting slow. I clocked out early, claiming a headache, and drove home, the radio off, my thoughts loud enough. At my apartment, I found a package slipped under the door, a small envelope with no return address. Inside was a postcard, a watercolor of a Parisian street. On the back, in Harper's handwriting, "Thought you'd like this." No signature, no date. It was postmarked a month ago, before the email. I held it, my anger mixing with confusion. Why send this, then shut me out? The postcard felt like a taunt, proof of a bond I wasn't sure existed anymore. I stood in my living room, the postcard trembling in my hand, Harper's handwriting blurring through tears I didn't bother wiping. The watercolor street mocked me, a piece of her world I wasn't allowed in. I dropped it on the coffee table and sank onto the couch, my chest tight like I was drowning in my own skin. Why send this at all? Was it guilt, pity? I wanted to rip it up, but my fingers wouldn't move. Instead, I grabbed my phone, desperate for answers, and called Sadie. It rang twice before she picked up, her voice cautious. "Lauren, hey? You got my message?" "Yeah," I said, my throat raw. "What's going on with Harper? I need to know." Sadie hesitated, the pause stretching too long. "She's not herself," she finally said. "Lucas's family, they're intense. They've got this image, you know. Old money, fancy parties. I think they see us like small-town people as beneath them." My stomach twisted. Us. So it wasn't just me. But why was Harper going along with it? Did she think I'd embarrass her showing up in my thrift store dress? My nurse's hands rough from years of work. Sadie kept talking, her words spilling fast. "I saw her last week at a cafe. She looked stressed, kept checking her phone. Lucas's mom was there, dropping hints about who should be at the wedding." Harper didn't push back. I gripped the phone tighter. Why didn't she tell me? I asked, my voice breaking. Sadie sighed. "I don't know. She's in deep with them. It's like she's trying to prove something." The call ended, and I sat there, the silence screaming. Prove something. To who? Lucas? His parents? Herself? I got up needing to move and found myself in Harper's old bedroom untouched since she left for Paris. Her art supplies were still in the corner, dried paint smudging the desk. I opened a sketchbook, flipping to a drawing she'd done at 16, our house with me in the window smiling. She'd given it to me for Mother's Day, saying, "You make home feel safe." Now that safety felt like a lie. I slammed the book shut, my breath ragged. How could she draw that, say that, and then write me out of her life? The doorbell rang, and I froze, half hoping it was Harper come to explain. But it was Clara, her arms crossed, face set. I let her in, and she didn't waste time. "You look worse than yesterday," she said, tossing her purse on the couch. I told her about Sadie's call, the postcard, the sketchbook. Clara's eyes flashed. "She's letting those snobs dictate her life. That's not the Harper you raised." She grabbed my shoulders. "You need to fight for her, Lauren. Don't let this slide." I pulled away, shaking my head. "Fight how she doesn't want me there. I'm not begging." Clara suggested a girls' night, said it'd clear my head, but I couldn't fake it. I agreed to meet her at a diner later, mostly to get her off my back. Alone again, I opened my email, scrolling through old messages from Harper. One from last year caught my eye, sent after a late-night call. "Mom, you're my rock. I'm so lucky to have you." I read it over and over, each word a fresh cut. Lucky. Then why was I sitting here, erased from her wedding, her life at the diner? Clara ordered fries and tried to distract me with hospital gossip, but I barely heard her. A family at the next table laughed, a mom braiding her daughter's hair. I looked away, my throat burning. Clara noticed, her voice softening. "You're not alone in this, okay?" But I felt alone more than ever. As we left, my phone buzzed. Another post from Harper, a photo of her wedding dress, ivory lace glowing in a boutique window. The caption read, "Feeling like a princess." I stopped in the parking lot, my heart splintering. A princess in a world I didn't belong in, and she was fine with that. I'm Lauren, 34, and I thought I'd felt every kind of hurt possible, but nothing prepared me for this. After seeing Harper's wedding dress post, I drove home in a fog, the diner's neon lights fading in my rear view. My phone buzzed again as I parked, a text from Sadie. "Check your email. Urgent." My stomach dropped. I fumbled to open my inbox, and there it was, a forwarded screenshot from Sadie, a group chat with Harper and Lucas's friends. My eyes scanned the words and the world tilted. Harper's message, typed 3 days ago, stared back. "My mom's not coming. Lucas's parents said she'd clash with the vibe. Too small town." I didn't argue. Easier this way. I read it again, my breath shallow, hoping I'd misread. But no. Harper had agreed I was an embarrassment, a blemish on her perfect Paris day. My hands shook, the phone slipping to the floor. I stumbled to my kitchen, gripping the counter, my vision blurring with tears. How could she? I'd given her everything, years of late shifts, every penny, every ounce of love, and she'd traded me for their approval. I wanted to scream, but all that came was a choked sob, raw and jagged. I paced my apartment, feeling too small, the walls closing in. My eyes landed on a shelf, a Paris travel guide Harper gave me when she first moved there. "One day we'll see it together," she'd written inside, her teenage cursive looping with promise. I grabbed it, flipping to that page, and the irony hit like a fist. Together, she didn't even want me in the same country. I hurled the book across the room, pages fluttering as it thudded against the wall. My chest heaved, anger and grief colliding, each breath a struggle. The doorbell buzzed, sharp and insistent. I wiped my face, hoping it was Clara, but it was Allison, my sister, standing there with a smug tilt to her lips. "I heard about Harper's email," she said, stepping inside uninvited. "I got an invite to the wedding, you know. They want me there." Her words were a blade, precise and cruel. I stared, my voice gone. "You're invited," I finally croaked. She nodded, inspecting her nails. "Guess I'm less overbearing." I wanted to slap her, to scream that she'd never sacrificed for Harper like I had, but I just stood there numb. Allison kept talking something about Paris hotels, but I barely heard her. My mind was stuck on Harper's message. Easier this way. Easier for who? For Lucas's parents with their fancy guest list. For Harper so she could play the perfect bride. I thought of every moment I'd held her hand when she broke her arm at 6, when she cried over her first heartbreak. I'd been her safe place. Now I was disposable. I cut Allison off mid-sentence. "Get out," I said, my voice low, trembling. She blinked, startled, but left without a fight, the door clicking shut behind her. Alone, I sank to the floor, my back against the couch. The screenshot burned in my mind, Harper's words looping like a cruel song. I grabbed my phone, my fingers hovering over her number. I wanted to call to demand why she'd let them erase me. But what would I say? Beg her to change her mind? The thought made me sick. Instead, I opened my banking app, staring at the depleted savings I'd poured into her wedding. $5,000. My security gone for a day I was banned from. Rage surged hot and unfamiliar, and before I could stop myself, I was searching flights to Paris, my heart pounding. I wasn't sure what I'd do when I got there, but I couldn't stay here swallowing this betrayal. My finger hovered over the book flight button, the screen glowing with a one-way ticket to Paris. My savings were already gutted, but the thought of showing up, of making Harper face me, fueled my resolve. I was Lauren, 34, and I'd never felt this unmoored, like my whole life had been a lie. I clicked the confirmation loading when my phone rang, Harper's name flashing. My heart stopped. I answered, my voice barely a whisper. "What do you want?" Her tone was ice, no trace of the girl I'd raised. "Mom, I know you're thinking of coming. Don't. You'll ruin everything. Lucas's parents are right. You don't fit here. It's my day, not yours." Each word was a shard slicing deeper than the last. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "Ruin it," I choked out. "I paid for your damn wedding, Harper." She didn't miss a beat. "Lucas covered it. You're not needed. Just watch the stream." I hung up my hand, shaking so hard the phone clattered to the table. Lucas covered it, a lie. I'd seen the bank transfer my name on the receipt. She was rewriting me out, not just from the wedding, but from her story. I stumbled to my bedroom, my legs weak, and collapsed onto the bed. My eyes caught a quilt folded in the corner, one my mom made when Harper was born, stitched with tiny stars. Harper used to sleep under it, clinging to me during thunderstorms. Now she was throwing me away like I was nothing. I curled up, tears soaking the pillow, but my mind wouldn't stop. I opened my laptop, the flight confirmation glaring back. I could go. I could stand outside that garden, force her to see me. But her voice echoed, "You don't fit here." I slammed the laptop shut, my breath ragged. Marcus's story flashed in my mind, how he'd shown up at his daughter's graduation, how she'd softened. But Harper wasn't softening. She was carving me out, deliberate and cold. My phone buzzed again, a notification from the wedding planner's newsletter. I opened it, not sure why, and froze. A photo of Harper and Lucas at a pre-wedding gala, her in a silk gown, him in a tailored suit. The caption read, "A perfect couple surrounded by their closest circle." I scanned the faces, recognizing no one from our life. Not Sadie, not her old friends, just Lucas's world, polished and exclusive. A quote from Lucas's mother followed, "We're curating an intimate, elegant affair." My blood boiled. Curating. Like I was clutter to be tossed. I stood pacing, my bare feet cold on the floor. I wanted to call Clara to scream, but my voice was gone, swallowed by a grief so deep it felt like drowning. I thought of every sacrifice, the double shifts, the missed birthdays, the dreams I'd shelved for her. And for what? To be told I was a mistake in her perfect picture. I sank to the floor, my back against the bed, the quilt in my lap. I clutched it, my sobs breaking free, loud and ugly. Harper's lie about the money, her coldness on the phone, the gala photo, they weren't just rejection. They were erasure. I was nothing to her now, and the weight of that truth crushed me, leaving me hollow with nowhere left to fall. I'm Lauren, 34, and that night crumpled on my bedroom floor with my mom's quilt. Something shifted. Harper's voice on the phone, her lie about Lucas paying for the wedding, the gala photo, they'd broken me open. But in the wreckage, I felt a spark. I wasn't going to Paris. I wasn't going to beg. I'd spent years pouring myself into her, but I was done letting her rejection define me. I stood my legs shaky and folded the quilt, setting it gently on the bed. It was time to take back my life. I grabbed my laptop, the flight confirmation still open, and canceled it. The refund wouldn't cover much, but it was a start. I didn't need to chase Harper across an ocean to prove my worth. Instead, I opened a blank document and started typing. Dear Harper, I wrote not to send but to free myself. You hurt me, but I'm not your mistake. I'm the mom who gave you everything and I deserve better. The words flowed raw and unfiltered, each one loosening the knot in my chest. I wrote about the nights I stayed up sewing her costumes, the dreams I'd shelved to fund hers, the love that never wavered even now. By the time I stopped, the page was full, and I felt lighter, like I'd reclaimed a piece of myself. The next morning, I called in sick to the hospital, something I rarely did. I needed space to think, to act. Clara came over, her eyes wide, when I told her about Harper's call and the lie about the money. That's it, she said, slamming her coffee mug down. You're not taking this lying down. She was right, but I didn't want to fight. I wanted something stronger. Clara suggested I turn my pain into something else, something mine. What about writing, she said. You're always scribbling in that journal. Share your story. It could help someone. The idea stuck. I'd never been one for attention, but maybe my hurt could mean something. I set up a blog calling it Notes from the Sidelines and poured my letter into the first post, tweaking it to stay anonymous. I wrote about being a single mom, about loving a daughter who pushed me away, about finding strength in the ache. My fingers trembled as I hit publish, but it felt right, like planting a flag in my own ground. I wasn't done. I opened my email and found the wedding planner's contact from the venue payment. My heart raced as I typed a message, polite but firm. I explained I'd funded the garden deposit, $5,000 from my savings, and since I wasn't attending, I requested a refund. I attached the bank receipt, my proof, and hit send before I could second-guess myself. It wasn't just about the money. It was about drawing a line, saying I wasn't invisible. Clara stayed scrolling through my blog as I cooked us breakfast, the smell of bacon filling the kitchen. You're onto something, she said, grinning. People are going to read this and feel seen. Her words lit a fire in me. I wasn't just Harper's mom anymore, the one left behind. I was Lauren, with a voice, a story, and a strength I'd forgotten I had. As we ate, my phone pinged with an email reply from the planner. I opened it, my breath catching. Ms. Thompson, thank you for reaching out. I'm sorry to hear you won't attend. Regarding the deposit, there's an issue. Ms. Harper was unaware of your contribution. Mr. Lucas claimed the funds were his. Can we discuss further? I stared, my fork frozen midair. Harper didn't know I'd paid. Lucas had lied to her, and she'd believed him. The revelation was a jolt, not of relief, but of clarity. I wasn't just fighting Harper's choice. I was up against a web of deceit, and I was done being tangled in it. The planner's email hung in the air, a bombshell I couldn't unsee. Harper didn't know I'd paid for her wedding. Lucas had stolen my place, and she'd let him. I'm Lauren, 34, and in that moment, I felt a fire I hadn't known I had. I closed my laptop, my hands steady now, and turned to Clara, who was still reading my blog. She looked up, sensing the shift. What's next? She asked, her eyes sharp. I smiled, small but real. I'm taking my life back, I said. I didn't reply to the planner yet. Instead, I grabbed my journal, a leather-bound book I'd kept since Harper was little, and started writing again. Not a letter to her, but to myself. Lauren, you're enough. You've always been enough. The words felt like a vow, each one anchoring me. I wrote about the years I'd put myself last, the guilt I'd carried for Ethan's absence, the fear I'd failed Harper. But I wasn't failing now. I was choosing me. Clara suggested I keep the blog going, make it a space for others like me. I spent the afternoon drafting another post, this one about the lies we're told by others, by ourselves. I shared how I'd let Harper's rejection define me, how I was learning to let go without losing love. When I posted it, my phone pinged with comments almost instantly. A woman named Rachel wrote, "Your story's mine too. Thank you for saying it out loud." Another anonymous said, "You're giving me courage to stand up." My chest swelled not with pride but purpose. I wasn't alone, and neither were they. The next day I called Marcus the nurse who'd shared his own story of estrangement. We met at a coffee shop, the air thick with roasted beans and morning chatter. I told him about the planner's email, the blog, my decision to stop chasing Harper. He nodded, stirring his coffee. When I stopped begging my daughter, she came back, he said. Not right away, but strength draws people in. His words settled in me, a roadmap I hadn't seen before. I didn't need to crash a wedding to be seen. I needed to be whole. Back home, I checked my blog again. A new comment caught my eye. Why don't you host a watch party for the live stream? Turn their rejection into your celebration. The idea was wild, but it sparked something. I called Clara, who whooped through the phone. Hell yes. Let's do it, she said. We planned it for the wedding day, a small gathering at my place with Marcus and a few blog readers I'd connected with online. It wasn't about spite. It was about reclaiming joy, about saying I could still find light in the dark. The wedding was tomorrow, and as the day loomed, my phone lit up with Harper's calls, one after another. I let them go to voicemail, her name flashing like a warning. I didn't listen, not yet. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses, not when I was still building this new version of myself. Instead, I went to the store, buying string lights and snacks for the watch party. The cashier, a young woman with a kind smile, asked if I was throwing a big event. Just a small one, I said, but it's important. She nodded like she understood. That night, I set up my living room, draping the lights over the bookshelf, arranging chairs in a cozy circle. Clara arrived early, bringing wine and a playlist of upbeat songs. Marcus showed up with a homemade dip, joking about his secret recipe. As we laughed, my phone buzzed again, Harper relentless. I muted it and set it face down on the counter. The watch party wasn't about her anymore. It was about me, about the people who'd chosen to show up, about the strength I'd found in letting go. I looked around the room, glowing soft and warm, and felt a quiet power settle in my bones. I was ready for tomorrow, not as Harper's mom, but as Lauren, whole and unbroken. I'm Lauren, 34, and the morning of Harper's wedding, my living room hummed with quiet purpose. The string lights cast a soft glow, and the smell of coffee mingled with Marcus's dip. I'd muted Harper's calls last night, and my phone sat silent now, a weight I refused to carry. The watch party wasn't about proving a point. It was about choosing joy over pain, about building something new from the ashes of her rejection. Clara bustled in, arranging cups, while Marcus fiddled with the laptop to stream the wedding. I felt steady, like I'd finally found my footing. As guests arrived, two women from my blog, Karen and Elise, both with their own stories of family rifts, the room filled with warmth. Karen, a soft-spoken teacher, hugged me, saying my posts had given her courage to face her sister's silence. Elise, sharper-edged, toasted to new beginnings. Their presence grounded me, a reminder I wasn't alone. We laughed, shared stories, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like Harper's shadow. Then my email pinged. I glanced at my phone, expecting spam, but it was Harper. Subject, please read. My stomach tightened, but I opened it, stepping into the kitchen for privacy. Her words spilled out frantic and uneven. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Lucas's parents pushed me to exclude you, said it'd keep things smooth. I was scared to lose him. I didn't know you paid for the venue. I'm a mess. Please call me. I stared, my pulse racing. She knew now. The planner must have told her. But her apology felt like a wave crashing too late, stirring up debris I'd just started to clear. I set the phone down, my hands cold. Clara called from the living room, asking if I was okay. But I needed a moment. Harper's words echoed, I was scared to lose him. She'd chosen Lucas's world over me, not out of shame, but fear. It didn't erase the hurt, it sharpened it. I'd been her rock, but she'd crumbled under their pressure. I wanted to call to hear her voice, but the memory of her coldness on the phone stopped me. You don't fit here. Those words still stung, apology or not. Back in the living room, the stream was starting, Harper's wedding unfolding in pixelated color. I sat, forcing a smile as Karen passed me a drink. The garden looked like a painting, flowers spilling over stone paths, guests in elegant suits and dresses. Harper appeared radiant in her gown. but her eyes darted nervous. I wondered if she was looking for me even now. The thought twisted in me a mix of love and anger I couldn't untangle. My phone buzzed a text from Allison. I braced myself expecting her usual jab, but it was different. I wasn't invited either, she wrote. Harper lied to me too. Said I was welcome, then ghosted. I'm sorry I was harsh. My jaw tightened. Harper had played us both, weaving lies to keep us at arm's length. Allison's apology was a surprise, but it didn't soften the blow. If anything, it made Harper's betrayal feel bigger, like a web we'd all been caught in. I slipped outside, needing air. The morning was crisp, my breath visible in the Ohio chill. I leaned against the porch railing, Harper's email replaying in my mind. She was sorry, but what did that mean? Was she sorry for the lie or for getting caught? I thought of Marcus's story, how he'd waited for his daughter to come back, not chasing, but standing firm. I wanted to be that strong, but my heart ached for the girl I'd raised, the one who'd needed me. The stream's music drifted through the window, Harper's vows starting, and I stayed out there frozen, caught between forgiving her and guarding the pieces of myself I'd only just reclaimed. I stood on my porch, the chill biting my skin, and felt the weight of Harper's email settle deeper. Her apology was a crack in the wall she'd built, but it didn't undo the months of silence, the lies. I slipped back inside the watch party's warmth, a stark contrast to the cold knot in my chest. The laptop screen showed Harper and Lucas exchanging rings, her smile tight, his hand possessive on hers. I looked away, my gaze landing on Karen, who gave me a quiet nod like she knew. I sat the couch creaking under me and checked my phone. Another email from Harper sent minutes ago. Mom, I'm watching the livestream chat. I saw your blog. I didn't know you felt this way. Can we talk after? Please, my breath caught. She'd read my posts, my raw truth laid bare for strangers now seen by her. I felt exposed, like she'd walked into a room I'd locked. I didn't reply, my fingers still. Clara glanced over, sensing my shift, but I shook my head, not ready to explain. Marcus changed the subject, asking Elise about her son's latest stunt, and the room eased into laughter. But I was elsewhere, replaying Harper's words. I didn't know you felt this way. How could she not? I'd poured my heart into her for years and she'd missed it, distracted by Lucas's world. I thought of a box in my closet filled with Harper's old letters from summer camp, each one ending with, I miss you, Mom. I'd found it last week, untouched for years, and now it felt like a relic from someone else's life. The stream ended, the screen fading to black, and Clara raised her glass. To us, she said, to choosing ourselves. We toasted, the clink of glasses sharp, but my smile was thin. Karen leaned in, her voice low. You did good, Lauren. This part of your blog, it's powerful. I nodded, grateful. But Harper's emails loomed, tugging at the edges of my resolve. I excused myself to the kitchen, splashing water on my face, the coolness grounding me. My reflection in the window showed tired eyes, but they were mine, not hers. My phone buzzed again, a video call from Harper. I stared at her name, the ring of it slicing through the chatter behind me. I let it ring, each chime a test of my will. When it stopped, a voicemail popped up. I didn't play it. Instead, I rejoined the group, forcing myself to laugh at Marcus's bad joke. But inside, I was unraveling her plea for connection, clashing with the walls I'd built. I thought of Allison's text, her admission that Harper had lied to her too. It wasn't just me. Harper had pushed away everyone from her past, and now she was reaching back, but why guilt, fear? I couldn't trust it. Later, as everyone left, Clara hugged me tight. You're stronger than you know, she said. I nodded, but alone in my quiet apartment, I felt the strength waver. I opened the closet, pulling out that box of Harper's letters. One slipped free, dated when she was 12. You're the best, Mom, it read, simple and sure. I held it, my chest aching, not with anger, but something softer, heavier. Harper's emails, her calls. They were steps toward me, but I wasn't ready to meet her. Not yet. I set the letter down, the silence of my home swallowing me, and for the first time I didn't know if I wanted her back or if I could ever trust her again. I'm Lauren, 34, and a week after Harper's wedding, I packed a small bag and drove to a lake an hour from my Ohio apartment. The air was sharp, the kind that wakes you up, and the water stretched wide silver under a cloudy sky. I'd rented a cabin, just me, no phone, no blog, no noise. I needed quiet, a place to sort through the pieces of myself I'd been holding too tight. Harper's emails, her voicemail, Allison's text. They'd stirred something, but I wasn't ready to face them. Not yet. I settled on the cabin's porch, a mug of tea warming my hands, the steam curling into the morning chill. The lake was still its surface, barely rippling, and I envied that calm. I'd spent months chasing Harper's approval, then weeks building my own strength, but now I just wanted to be. I walked to the shore, my boots crunching on gravel, and picked up a flat stone, skipping it across the water. 3 bounces, then it sank. Like me, I thought, but I was learning to float. I thought about my blog, how it had grown, strangers turning into a quiet community. I hadn't posted since the watch party, but their comments echoed in me stories of broken ties and hard-won peace. One woman, Diane, had written about forgiving her brother after a decade apart, not for him, but for herself. That stuck with me, the idea that forgiveness wasn't a gift to someone else, it was freedom for you. I wasn't sure I could forgive Harper, but the thought didn't claw at me like it used to. Back at the cabin, I pulled out a notebook, not my journal, but a fresh one I'd bought on the way. I started sketching something I hadn't done since high school, when Harper and I would doodle together on rainy days. I drew the lake, the trees, the curve of the horizon, my lines shaky but honest. It felt good, like reclaiming a part of me I'd forgotten. I wrote a few words beside the sketch, let go. Hold on. Both felt true, and I was okay with that. Clara had wanted to come, but I told her I needed this alone. Still, I thought of her as I sat by the lake, her fierce belief in me carrying me through. I'd invited her for tomorrow, a compromise, because I knew I couldn't stay in this quiet forever. But for now, it was enough to watch the water, to feel the weight of my own breath. I thought of my mom, how she'd loved lakes like this, how she'd taught me to find peace in small things. I'd lost her too young, but her lessons lingered, guiding me now. I walked along the shore, my scarf loose around my neck, and found a small dock jutting into the water. I sat at the end, legs dangling, the wood rough under my palms. A memory surfaced, not of Harper, but of me at 20, right after Ethan left. I'd sat in a park alone, wondering how I'd raise a toddler on my own. I'd done it, though, and that strength was still in me, steady as the lake. Harper's choices didn't change that. I closed my eyes, the wind soft on my face, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was fighting. I was just here, whole in my own skin, and that was enough. I'm Lauren, 34, and by the second day at the lake, the quiet had settled into my bones. The cabin smelled of pine and coffee, and I woke early, the dawn soft through the window. I didn't check my phone, didn't open my notebook. I just sat on the porch watching mist curl over the water, my hands wrapped around a blanket. I wasn't running from Harper's emails or the ache of her choices anymore. I was learning to carry them lighter now, like stones smoothed by the current. Clara arrived at noon, her laugh breaking the stillness as she hauled a picnic basket from her car. We spread a blanket by the shore, the grass cool under us, and ate sandwiches, trading stories about nothing and everything. She told me about her cousin's messy divorce, how it taught her to guard her own heart. I nodded, thinking of my own walls, how I'd built them high, but was starting to carve out windows. Clara didn't ask about Harper, and I was grateful. She knew I'd speak when I was ready. We walked to a clearing where wildflowers dotted the ground, purple and small against the green. I knelt, touching their petals, and decided to plant something when I got home. Not for Harper, not for anyone else, but for me. A garden, maybe, with colors I chose. The thought felt like a promise, small but steady, to keep growing no matter what came next. Clara watched, smiling. "You're different," she said. "Stronger." I shrugged, but her words warmed me like sunlight after a long winter. Later, I got a text from Ethan asking to meet up, saying he wanted to fix things. I read it, my thumb hovering, and then deleted it. His absence wasn't my burden anymore. I didn't need his apologies to feel whole. Instead, I thought of my blog, how it had become a lifeline not just for me, but for others. I pulled out my laptop, sitting at the cabin's rickety table, and read new comments. A man named Tom wrote about losing his son to addiction, finding solace in my words. I typed a reply short but real, and felt a thread connect us fragile but true. Harper's face flickered in my mind. Not the bride on the live stream, but the girl who'd once braided my hair giggling as we made a mess. I didn't push the memory away. It was part of me, but it didn't own me. I walked to the dock again, the lake darker now, reflecting the fading sky. I sat my hands resting on my knees and thought about love, not the kind that demands, but the kind that lets go. I wasn't sure where Harper and I would land, but I knew I'd be okay with or without her. As Clara packed up, she hugged me, her voice low. "You've got this, Lauren." I nodded, my eyes on the water. She drove off, her taillights fading, and I stayed on the dock, the air cool against my skin. The stars were out, faint but steady, and I breathed slow, each inhale a choice to keep moving forward. I wasn't healed, not fully, but I was here, alive in my own story, and that was enough. I stood my shadow long on the wood and walked back to the cabin, the night wrapping around me like a quiet friend. I'm Lauren, 34, and back in my Ohio apartment, the world feels different, like I've shed a skin I didn't know was too tight. It's been a month since the lake, and I've started small rituals, things just for me. Every morning I brew coffee and sit by the window watching the street wake up, the delivery trucks rumbling past. I don't check my phone first thing anymore. I let the quiet hold me, teaching me to listen to myself before anyone else. My backyard is a work in progress, a patch of dirt I've turned into a garden. I planted daisies and lavender, their roots still fragile, but I kneel there most evenings, trowel in hand, the earth cool against my fingers. It's not about perfection. It's about showing up day after day for something that grows because I tend it. I think about my mom a lot out there, how she'd hum while pruning her roses, how she found joy in what she could nurture. I'm learning that too. The blog is still alive, a steady pulse in my life. I post less often, but each entry feels truer, like I'm speaking to a room of friends. Readers keep sharing their stories. Parents, siblings, friends, all navigating their own fractures. A woman named Sarah wrote about rebuilding trust with her dad, step by slow step. It made me think of Harper, but not with the old ache. I'm not waiting for her to fix me anymore. I'm fixing myself. Clara stops by often, her laughter filling my kitchen as we cook, experimenting with recipes we'd never try alone. Last week we burned a batch of cookies, the smoke alarm blaring, and we laughed until our sides hurt. Marcus joined us once, bringing stories from the hospital, his calm presence a reminder of how far I've come. Even Allison called, her voice softer, asking to meet for coffee. I said yes, not because I need her approval, but because I can handle her now on my terms. Harper sent a package last week, a small box that arrived without warning. I opened it at my kitchen table, the light slanting through the blinds. Inside was a photo from her wedding, her in that gown smiling, but her eyes held something new, regret maybe. A note was tucked beside it, her handwriting careful. "Mom, I'm sorry. Can we try again?" I set it down, my heart steady, not racing like before. I didn't call her back right away. I will soon, but I'm not rushing. I've learned trust isn't rebuilt in a day. I've started painting again, not sketches, but canvases, bold colors. I mix myself. They line my living room, half-finished, messy mine. I don't care if they're good. They're proof I'm here, creating, not just surviving. Sometimes I catch myself humming the sound, startling me like I've found a piece of joy I thought was lost. The apartment feels bigger now, not because it's changed, but because I'm not shrinking myself to fit it. I walk to the mailbox each evening, a habit that grounds me. The air is cooler now, fall creeping in, and I watch kids bike down the street, their shouts fading into dusk. I don't feel empty anymore. I'm not whole, not yet, but I'm enough, and that's a start. I hold Harper's note in my mind, not as a lifeline, but as a possibility, something I'll face when I'm ready. For now, I'm here, my hands in the dirt, my heart learning its own rhythm, and I'm okay with that. I'm Lauren, 34, and as the days stretch into weeks, I found a rhythm that feels like mine. My garden's blooming now, daisies swaying in the October breeze, and I've added a bench out back, a place to sit with my thoughts. I've been meeting Harper for coffee, small steps. No rush. She's quieter, her words careful, like she's learning me again. I listen, but I don't pour myself out like before. I've learned to hold some pieces back, not out of anger, but because they're mine to keep. Last weekend, I hosted a dinner, nothing fancy. Just Clara, Marcus, and Allison at my table, plates, mismatched candles flickering. We talked about everything but the past. Clara's new job, Marcus's bad golf swing, Allison's tentative steps toward mending our rift. I watched them, my home full, and realized I'd built something new, not from Harper's absence, but from my own strength. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and I was proud of it. I've kept painting my canvases bolder now, slashes of red and gold that don't need to mean anything. I hung one above my couch, its edges uneven, but it makes me smile. I've been reading 2 books I'd shelved for years, their pages yellowed but alive. I'm not filling a void. I'm discovering what I love, what makes me feel whole. Harper's part of my story, but she's not the center anymore. I am. The blog's grown quiet, but I check it sometimes, replying to comments when I can. A teenager named Mia wrote last week, saying she'd fought with her mom, but my story made her call her. That's what stays with me, not the numbers, but the ripples, the way a single truth can touch someone else's life. I don't need Harper's approval to know my voice matters. I don't need anyone's. I met Harper yesterday at a park near her hotel. She's back in Ohio for a bit, figuring things out. She brought a thermos of tea, and we sat on a bench, leaves crunching under our feet. She talked about therapy, about untangling Lucas's influence, about wanting to be better. I nodded, my hands in my pockets, letting her words settle without pulling me under. I told her I'm proud of her, and I meant it, but I also told her I'm proud of me. She looked at me, her eyes soft, and for the first time I saw her see me not as her mom, but as Lauren. What I've learned is simple, but it took losing everything to find it. Love isn't about giving yourself away until you're empty. It's about standing tall in your own truth, letting others meet you there or not. I used to think love meant holding on no matter the cost, but now I know it's about letting go of guilt, of expectations, of the need to be enough for someone else. I'm enough for me, and that's the root of everything else. What's a moment you chose yourself even when it hurt? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated, give it a like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs it. Thank you for listening, for being here. Here's to finding our way, one quiet step at a time.